Sinsuat, Executive Director of PUBLiCUS Asia Incorporated, and I'm joined by the Chief Data Scientist of PUBLiCUS, Dr. David Yap, to discuss some live reactions to the CNN presidential debate that happened last night. So, hey David,
Ahoy!
this is a little different from our usual, more formal Pahayag election report podcasts. So we just like to, discuss a little bit about what happened last night with everyone. So hopefully, maybe you'll get some insights that might be helpful in informing your decision come May 2022. Of course, CNN Philippines hosted a presidential debate last night on Sunday, February 27, 2022, with 9 of the 10 presidential candidates represented. So, first, David, what are your general impressions about the debate last night, or what did you think
Well,
about the debate?
it was very professionally done. The set design was very nicely done. But I would go ahead and say that I wish that the questions, or more specifically, the follow up questions from the hosts slash moderators. I wish that the follow up questions were a bit more hard hitting and probing.
For example, David, what is one issue perhaps that you would have liked some more hard-hitting questions, or maybe a little more follow-up from the moderators?
Well, one issue struck me in particular. The stance of the candidates on the conflict in Ukraine. There were several candidates who opposed the stance of our defense secretary. As you may know, our current stance is that we are adopting a neutral stance when it comes to Ukraine, and some of the candidates oppose this. I would have liked the moderators to have asked the candidates how would they uh, what actions would they take with that particular policy stance. More specifically, are they willing to send Filipino troops to defend Ukraine, to help bolster the Ukrainian defense force? Are they willing to send food and other supplies to Ukrainian refugees? I think those are critical questions, because if you're looking at any meaningful action when it comes to this conflict, all of those come with attendant costs, and these are costs that would be paid by Filipino people, either through their taxes or through the lives of our soldiers.
So, David, in your opinion, what would be the best course of action for the Philippine government to take with regards to the situation in Ukraine?
Well, personally speaking, I think we have more than enough problems to keep us occupied. While we may have sympathy with the people who are in Ukraine, while we may sympathize with their plight, at the end of the day, we have a host of our problems to attend to.
David, bringing the Ukraine issue back towards the Philippine context, how would the Ukraine issue affect us from a policy point of view, or perhaps in an economic point of view?
Well, for starters, what's happening in Ukraine right now will have direct impact on energy prices, not just on oil, not just on natural gas in the global market, but 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 also other fossil fuels. And because of that, it would have plenty of knock-on effects on a lot of things that we in the Philippines import heavily. Obviously, we are importers of crude. We are importers of coal, and once Malampaya runs out, if that issue, if this crisis isn't resolved by then we'll have another problem. We'll have another vulnerability in our energy sector. with natural gas. But apart from those things, I think that the greater demand that we can expect with the loosening of restrictions is another thing to watch out for. It's not just the conflict in Ukraine, with our nation's capital going down to alert level 1. More people are going out, more people are using their cars. The demand for fuels is up again. So we have both supply side and demand side stresses on the price of oil.
Actually, David, in fairness to the candidates, a few of them did mention some specific energy policies or even just general ideas on energy policy at last night's debate. Uh, do you remember like any particular policy stance or proposal about energy that you thought was a good one last night from our presidential
Well,
polls?
a lot of their policy proposals centered around, the most I would say reasonable ones, centered around removing the excise taxes, or removing or reducing the excise taxes on oil, and providing fuel subsidies to the public transportation sector. While those are and of course there are also suggestions on shifting away, but that's shifting away from private cars and to other modes of transportation or public transportation. But those kinds of responses would take time. But generally speaking, what I would say that what was missing was an acknowledgement of the importance of policy consistency. Because what is important is that we don't just muck about with our, like, for example, the train. The issue with the train is that it's a law. So while it's tempting to just up and say that, let's just reduce or remove the excise taxes, it's not something that should be done regularly or whenever a crisis emerges. I think what this emphasizes is the need for rule-based policy making or legislation, in the sense that future legislation or maybe an amendment to the train can be included, wherein, given certain crisis triggers, we can automatically adjust excise taxes. I think those are more sustainable. Those are more not reason, well, not just reasonable, but those are longer running kinds of strategies.
I remember correctly, under the train laws that was signed into law, there is a provision which provides the president the authority to, I believe, suspend or maybe reduce excise taxes when I believe it's the Brent oil average reaches a certain level or something like that. So you think maybe more of these that provide little more policies that provide a little more flexibility, perhaps,
Correct.
to the president to.
It's not just about it shouldn't be just about the power of the president. There should be automatic conditions, so that whenever something like this happens, whenever, like, for example, as you said, the Brent price reaches a particular threshold, and add in some inflation adjustments along the way as we go over time, then what will happen is that these would eliminate a lot of the arbitrariness made in decision making. It's the kind of policy consistency that also encourages investment, I would think. So it's not just for immediate relief, but that kind of policy consistency gives investors as well some more breathing room, I would think. So you're gonna hit multiple birds with one stone.
But at the same time, when we're talking about potentially reducing, at least temporarily, excise taxes, something else that might be affected that was mentioned in the debate last night was also the national debt, or specifically, there were some candidates such as Senator Ping Lacson who were supporting the balancing of the budget. So, considering that our national debt right now is, as according to the candidates, at around 11.7 trillion pesos, can we really afford to forego the revenue perhaps from those taxes at this time?
Well, of course, that's definitely a challenge, especially within the framing of balancing the budget. But what's important? That's actually, again, I would like to say that's a very good question. But the challenge then becomes, especially within the context of balancing the budget, is that we're emerging from a crisis situation. And if you consider the budgets over the years, the national budgets over the years, it's very difficult to taper down a national budget. That's not something that you see usually. And what that kind of strategy requires is drastically drawing down the budget. If you want to balance the budget, it's not about good luck trying to raise more taxes. If you, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to balance the budget, you either make more money or you spend less. And if you consider how narrow the tax base of the Philippines is, the more feasible, I would think, the more feasible strategy would be to draw down expenses rather than increasing revenues. So
Actually,
if you want to balance the budget, then that would come with decreased government spending, I would think.
Senator Pacquiao also mentioned several points about increasing the revenue of the government. What did you think about his policy proposals with regard to that point?
Well, I wouldn't want to put words in his mouth, but to me, it felt like that apart from plugging up leakages, which is of course a valent statement, I would think that that would entail higher taxes in one form or another,
Okay.
and that's
Actually,
something that I would that I'm not a fan of.
David, I'd like to show you or I would like to show everyone the slide that we had from our Pahayag National Election Tracker survey regarding the top issues for this election. So basically, we asked respondents to rank their top three issues of importance going into the 2022 elections. And then just to review, the top issue overall by far was the Philippine economy, with almost 2 out of 3 respondents saying that it was one of their top three issues. This was followed by jobs at 56%. And then a second tier of important but maybe less top of mind issues were education, poverty, and corruption. So we can consider the economy, jobs, education, poverty, and corruption as maybe like the top 5 issues, at least in terms of our survey here at Pahayag. So, David, I wanted to ask you, compared to everything that the candidates said last night and their messaging, which of the candidates do you think most hit home a proper message on the issues that are important to the electorate based on those numbers that we have from our Pahayag National Election Tracker survey?
Well, I'm not sure if anyone mentioned it, but to my recollection, I don't think anyone pushed for lower taxes. I think that's one of the critical issues that uh, that sort of wasn't mentioned. It's more about expanding government services. It's about the government playing a bigger role in the economy. But nobody, well, personally speaking, I'm speaking from a personal standpoint, and not from like a from an organizational standpoint. I think n- that the absence of any statement on lowering taxes is well, for me personally, it's disappointing, because that is one of the easiest ways to to push the economy forward, I would think.
I was just about to say also, any proposal to lower taxes would also be an extremely low-hanging fruit na talagang magugustuhan ng mga botante, di ba?
Exactly. And when you think about it, it's like removing the middleman from from if you're after providing uh services to people, you have to first tax the people and then put up a program to provide services to the people. But if you just provide tax breaks, then it's That's additional disposable income that people can dispose of as they see fit.
Now, moving back towards the debate last night on CNN Philippines, what were some of the specific answers from specific candidates that you really thought were quite good?
Well, I would have to give it to Manila Mayor Isko Dumagoso for asserting the importance of putting Filipinos first when asked about the stance of the Philippines on the Ukrainian conflict. I think that his answer to that was well, it appealed to my sensibilities because it showed that he was, I would think that he was cognizant of the implied costs of entering into the Russian Ukraine conflict as a supporter of one side.
Are there any other memorable answers that you could also remember, maybe from another candidate on a specific issue?
Well, there were a lot of answers that made me cringe, but I would think that we should avoid discussing those.
maybe,
Anything
maybe,
that anything any responses that pertain to mucking about with public-private contracts or contracts in general, answers that well, I'd rather not say, but yeah.
Maybe in terms of messaging, of course, when it comes to a debate, it's not all about the exact policy points specifically, and many voters may not take away, the specific proposals of the candidates that they raised at the debate. The debate. What is more important, I think, is how they carried themselves and how they communicated a general message. How they communicated the message of their campaign. And among all of the presidentiables who were present last night, David, who do you think, maybe a couple, or if you could, who did well in hitting home their particular message of their campaign?
I think all of the more popular candidates sort of were able to carry their brand well during last night's debate. So I would say that they were pretty much on brand. So yeah.
Maybe moving forward, David, in the next debates, like if we were to give constructive criticism, perhaps, how could they be made better moving forward? Not to say that CNN didn't do a good job, as I agree with David that
Yeah,
their
I
debate
think
was quite well done and everything, but maybe how could we improve the debates, or maybe change up the format, make it a different kind of style of debate to have a better finished product and a more informative product for the voters who are watching.
I think that they, as I said earlier, one suggestion would be to get some more hard hitting questions and moderators that are willing to probe deep into the responses of the candidates. I think that even with the number of candidates that are involved, I think that they have enough time, and if they need to extend to be able to probe, I think the people who are interested in watching the debates will gladly appreciate, they'd appreciate the extra airtime.
And I think maybe for our final question tonight, David, or this afternoon, but quite an important question is, based on what you watched last night, how do you think the CNN Philippines debate might impact the survey numbers of the presidentiables going into our next Pahayag National Election Tracker survey? For everyone's information, we will be running the second run of our Pahayag National Election Tracker survey sometime soon. We can't tell you exactly when, but it's coming up and the results will be out quite soon. So, David, how do you think last night's performance might help some people? Or how would last night's performance affect the numbers of the presidentiables in our next Pahayag survey?
I would go so far as to say that there would be minimal, if any, effect. The last night's debate would have a very small effect on the poll numbers. Why? Because let's be honest. I think that many of the people who tune into these debates already have a preferred candidate in mind. And when you frame it in that way, what's happening there is that people tune into debates not with the expectation that candidate A will dissuade them or convince them to shift their vote away from candidate B, but rather they are there to root for their preferred candidate. Similar to, say, watching a major sporting event like the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals, they already have a candidate in mind, and they are watching the debate to root for their candidate, and at the same time to how do I frame this? How do I say this? To look for tidbits that would help them convince themselves further that they have made the right choice. This is already the in group out group bias out at play. People already have people. A lot of people have already made up their minds. A lot of people who tune in already have already made up their minds.
Well, so in that context, David, how could the presidentiables make the most out of what they did last night? Like, how could they build on whatever messages that they put out last night, or maybe good policy stances that they confirmed?
Well, what they can do is to, well, make more memes. At the end
Make
of the day, that's how you can take their best sound bites and then propagate it through their social media channels. All of these are fodder for additional campaign materials for their supporters and the people who are on the fence. And I think that the competition would be on who would have the best memes, who would have the best tidbits, and the best strategies for distributing these tidbits.
Okay, David. Well, I think that's the last question for me today. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss, our reactions to the CNN Philippines presidential debate last night. And I think in the future, maybe we'll do some more of these sort of live chat kinds of videos. And in the future, we'll probably open up the floor to anyone who might be asking, who would like to ask questions, in the comments section. So if you want to stay up to date with our latest podcast, our latest info on the presidential elections, the 2022 elections in the Philippines, please do take a moment to like this video and to subscribe to our channel. And on behalf of Publicus Asia Incorporated, again, I am Aureli Sinsuat, and with me was Dr. David Yap. And thank you for watching this special experimental live version of the Pahayag election report. We will be seeing you again very soon to release the results of our February 18 to 24, 2022 Pahayag NCR election tracker survey results, where we tested the mayoral and vice mayoral preferences in all 17 cities and municipalities in Metro Manila. So please look forward to that. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a great day.